I'm Mike Romigh. This is the Live Mike, and this morning we're speaking with Beaver County District Attorney Nate Bible, who has the day off from work at the courthouse because it's President's Day. But the work of a district attorney probably never stops, does it?
Never stops, no.
Those wheels constantly turning in your head?
The wheels constantly turning. I have two phones sitting here that can go off at any time. Yeah. And you're right. If I'm not on the phone talking to somebody about an active case, I'm thinking about what's going on in the office.
When do local authorities call on the district attorney's office?
So we always have one assistant district attorney on call. Mm-hmm. There's one detective and one ADA that are always on call, and they will reach out to them first. If they can't get a hold of them, then they would call me, my first assistant. They're sort of a pecking order. But oftentimes, it could be, if they're going to call at night, it's because of a major crime that occurred, like a homicide or possibly a sex crime, something like that. Or if they have questions about a warrant, possibly, or something. Anytime they need legal advice, or just to kind of let me know what's going on.
So let's take, for example, the case in Beaver Falls a couple of months back. Mm-hmm. The woman who was found dead on the railroad tracks down there. You were on the scene at that one, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And actually, my first assistant was giving her closing argument on a drug case that she had. I was watching her closing as I'm getting texts and calls about, hey, we need to talk to you. So as soon as that was done, I went out and was given the news. It was a Thursday morning. And a couple of my detectives went out to assist Beaver Falls PD in their investigation. And then I kind of waited till, the let them do their job, right? And let them do their investigation. And then myself and the on-call ADA came out that afternoon and went through a bunch of search warrants with them and saw what type of evidence they had. So
Beaver Falls had to contact your office in that case.
They did. They called one of my detectives, and that's kind of, I guess, typically if there's a major crime like this, it's up to the municipal office. Sometimes they call the state police. Sometimes they call the detective's office, and it's completely up to them. It's sort of whoever they want to assist them.
From the public's point of view, sometimes those cases are frustrating. We don't always know what's going on or what's behind it.
Absolutely.
Because a woman is found dead down there.
Yes.
It's a homicide. I think it was referred to as a homicide.
Yep.
Then everything shuts down.
Yep.
There's no more information on it. We know we got the woman's name, alleged woman's name, because of a roommate.
Right.
Or coworkers who were putting stuff on social media about it.
Right.
But the police department, the DA's office, very tight-lipped about all this.
Yes, and I spoke with Chief Johnson that day. I was at the Beaver Falls Police Station, and I let him know that my office is here to support you. However you kind of want to handle this with the media, I'm 100% behind you. So that day we did release a joint statement. At that point, we didn't know that it was a homicide yet. We didn't find that out until after the autopsy the following day. And since then, I think I don't want to say scarred, but I'm taking a lot of precautions because of the way that my predecessor handled a lot of these cases. Very quick to jump on TV, saying too much at times, that jeopardized the investigations. And I think knowing that and having that kind of beat into my head during the campaign, I am now a little overly cautious on it. So, and I thought about coming out and making a statement like a couple weeks later, but at that point, I really didn't have any new information. I would just be sort of regurgitating the same stuff that's been out there. And I kind of didn't want to call a press conference just to say the same thing and it be sort of why'd you even bother with it?
Right. So you left it up to the local jurisdiction.
I did, and I wanted to just follow his lead, however he wanted to handle it. I can tell you this: both my office and the Beaver Falls Police Department have been working nonstop on this. And this is, every case is important to me. This one being sort of the first homicide of my tenure. I'm actually one of the attorneys on the case. I'm going to try it with my second assistant and another ADA. So I've kind of kept a close eye on what's developing, and there are some developments, but again, it's in order to not jeopardize the investigation. You certainly don't want to tip your hand to anybody we may be looking at. It has been very tight-lipped.
Yeah, and there's Did it go to the cold case phase yet? No,
no.
because you said you're still working on it.
Oh yeah, no, it's very
Still
very
working on the
active.
lease. And Beaver Falls Police, a couple weeks after the incident, they asked people in town if they have ringtone cameras and any kind of footage, that sort of thing, walking up and down the avenues where they suspect the person may have gone. They ask for that. Is that commonplace anymore?
I think so, yeah. I mean, and you think about it, between a cell phone, a ring cam, businesses that have them, and Beaver Falls, the city itself has a phenomenal camera system that covers the main street in a lot of different areas. But, I think asking for the public for their help in something like this is commonplace. And we did get some responses from the public, and some of those things were actually very helpful. So, and I think the public's happy to do it. I mean, it's their community. They want it to be safe as well. So, but it's still towing that fine line of exactly what we're looking for and who we're looking for.
Can you say if there is a person of interest at this time?
I can say there's a couple people that we're actually looking at. And again, it's tough. I don't want to say too much because of the ongoing investigation. But I can tell you that it is still very active. And in fact, I'm meeting on Wednesday with them to kind of get our ducks in a row and see exactly where we're at. So
sometimes when something like this happens, later on we find out, well, there's a network of people who are hiding this individual, that they know where he or she is, but they're just not relaying that information to the police.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to earlier when we were talking about, criminals kind of getting set free at times. The police can only do so much, and the same with the DA's office. I mean, we rely on the public. Somebody out there witnessed something or knows something, and a lot of times they don't want to come forward. So, it makes it tough. It makes it tough to solve some of these cases when somebody saw something but they don't want to say anything.
Yeah,
about
and
it.
you don't want to jeopardize the case, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
The mayor says the same thing in Beaver Falls. So we can't say anything right now about it. This, as a district attorney, when you were a practicing attorney, you probably didn't have as much attention from the news media.
I had very little to none.
Now, news media can be pretty persistent or a pain in the backside because of their persistence. They want the story and they want to be the first to get the story.
Sure, and I understand that. I mean, I understand they have a job to do just like I do. I do get multiple text messages, multiple emails a week asking for updates, and I'm more than happy to give those updates when there is something to update. And
but it's interesting too, because I remember I texted you when this thing happened, and because Curtis had gotten the name of the victim, and I texted you, said, we're reporting this, is this accurate? And you didn't respond, and there hasn't really been an official word from the Beaver Falls Police Department or your office as to this person's name, even the victim.
So I think what happened, if I'm remembering correctly, we originally, when we put out the statement, had the victim's name in it. And I think just out of respect to the family, we did talk with the family. We decided to redact it out. And I guess at that point, that really has been the only statement that has come from my office or the Beaver Falls Police. It's certainly been out there of the person's name and some other, facts related to it, which are accurate. But
why did the Beaver Falls Police have to go down there weeks later and look again?
I think just to make sure we didn't miss anything, to collect some evidence. There was a lot of evidence collected from the scene, and a lot of stuff that gets sent to the labs for testing. Unfortunately, it's the labs do a great job, but they just have an enormous backload. So for something this serious, they move it to the top of the list, but it still takes several weeks, as you're seeing, and we're still waiting on some of those results. And I again, without saying too much, I think maybe I know that something that was brought to their attention caused them to go take a second look at something. So
okay, yeah, and even the coroner, David Gabauer, in a recent statement, he said that he was asked about the autopsy report. He said the autopsy report still isn't in for the cause of death. Initially, we heard it was a stabbing incident.
How long ago did he make that statement?
A couple weeks ago, I think.
Oh, really?
Said yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe not even that far back. Huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move off of that because you're still working on it, and
Yeah.
I don't want you to even. Yeah, I can see the wheels moving in your head. You're thinking, what can I say? What can I say about
That's
this?
exactly right.
Cold cases in general, they're always something that people want to know about.
Sure.
And so since you just came into office, have you had the opportunity to look into the case that happened in Center Township in the Hopewell area?
So if the Center Township, which is that,
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on her name. Young woman killed on Mother's Day in her parents' driveway.
Rachel Del Tondo.
Yeah, Rachel Del Tondo.
In Aliquippa.
Yeah, okay. Along Broadhead Road there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. And there is a case in Center, and there's actually several in Aliquippa. I have, funny enough, I think 2 days into office, I went, down to the evidence locker. I pulled up, I'd say like 8 binders worth of files for it. Got through the first binder and a half in like a day, and then it's been very, very slow since then, just with things coming up. Because I think actually the following week is when we found the body in Beaver Falls.
Right.
So I have them. I have those files sitting in my office locked. That I'm slowly going through them, and as I said before, I think there's 8 unsolved homicides in Aliquippa that I know. Rachel's case did get national attention, and it certainly was a thorn in the side of the prior administration. But all those cases are important to me, and I want to look at all of them. And in fact, we just we're putting out. There's one cold case. It's considered a cold case, although we have a suspect. Who is on the lam right now, and we just offered, I want to say either a $5,000 or $10,000 reward for his information on his whereabouts.
Do people usually respond to that if there's money involved? Somebody's going to say something?
I don't know. This is the first one that I've had that we've through Crime Stoppers that we've offered a reward for. I don't know about in the history or historically how eager people are to come forward.
Yeah.
But if I can just say something on the cold cases. Yeah. So, it's tough in a county of this size. We have a huge caseload when it comes to the DA's office and the detective's office, and it's always just comes down to resources. How much time do we have to dedicate to a cold case? And I've met with people from CCBC, from Penn State Beaver. And an idea that was actually pitched to me last year is, having some of the students in the criminal justice programs there take a look at some of these cold cases. Now I have to kind of figure out the legality of it as far as, it's obviously very sensitive information that they're going to be looking at. But, sometimes it doesn't hurt to have a set of fresh eyes. From an educational perspective, it's a great learning tool for them to actually see a real case, see how it was investigated. And then it helps out our office when we have, X number of students dedicated just to reviewing all the evidence in this file and seeing if maybe something was missed.
Do you or the detectives, have the detectives, if you talk to them at all, even the Del Tondo case or any of the other ones, do they ever say, this one really got screwed up?
Yes.
It shouldn't have gone this far. We should have been able to make an arrest by this time.
Yes, without a doubt. And the Del Tondo case in particular, it's and I said this during the campaign that it was screwed up pretty bad within the first week, and which has caused some very serious problems down the road. And here we are 5+ years later. Yeah, coming up on 6 actually in May.
Yeah, there's so many things, and as we continue to hear about it, you think, well, this police officer went into the evidence, the area that was roped off. He was allowed to go into there, and what happened there, and and once this gets out into the public, then the public's imagination just goes wild about what happened there.
Mike, every single one of my friends has their own theory on what happened, and and it's an extremely interesting case. There's a lot of moving parts to it. But sometimes, the simplest explanation is the correct one. And, once I get through these files, I have to meet with the detectives again. But that has really been my main focus as far as the cold cases go. And because I think it's the most complicated one to really figure out. But I do, like I said, all of those cases are important to me. I will look at every single one of them. The homicide cold cases.
Did the media attention kind of mess those things up as well because people were talking to national media, local media about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that that messed it up. I think, I mean, as we saw during the campaign, some of the statements made by my predecessor may have messed things up. As far as, whoever ends up being charged with this getting a fair trial. I mean, there's probably not too many people in Beaver County that don't have at least some idea of what they think happened from reading articles. And it's funny. I mean, I've gone through and read a lot of the media articles about it just to kind of get myself up to speed as to what people may think happened. And a lot of times, what's in those files doesn't exactly match what was in
the news reports.
In the news reports, yeah. So, and I know a lot of those files were sealed. So, it would have been just leaks from whether it was the police department or the detective's office of how some of that information got out. But, sometimes people are, which is something that I'm trying to be very cautious of, they're very eager to push out information before they have sort of all the facts. And but it's a way that a lot of those articles were written do create a very, creative story of, and again, like I said, every one of my friends and everybody I've talked to has their own sort of theory on what they think has happened.
And so we read the stories and say, yeah, they kind of got, they're on the trail here. They know what they're talking about.
Some of the things, and sometimes you go, well, I guess I see why they wrote that, but there's really nothing there,
So you said there's 7 or 8 right now?
I believe 8 in Aliquippa alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and in that case, Aliquippa, the Del Tondo, whenever these cases are handed over to the state police because of conflict of interest somewhere, is that an indication that the local police just doesn't want to touch this or shouldn't touch this?
No, I think that, first of all, when you look at the state police, I mean, they're extremely well-trained troopers. They have a vast amount of resources compared to any municipality in Beaver County. And so if you took a smaller municipality who maybe has 5 full-time officers, how can you have 3 of them dedicated to working on a homicide, right? So it's really, and it's not so much that that those municipal officers aren't equipped to handle it. A lot of them are. A lot of them are very good at their jobs. They've been doing this for a long time, but it's a matter of if you're going to work on this homicide, that's all you're going to do. And a lot of the municipal police departments now are shorthanded as it is. A lot of the officers are working lots of overtime just to cover shifts. So to try to pull 1 or 2 or 3 of them away from that is very challenging. And Beaver Falls is one of the larger, municipal police departments, and they have several guys just dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes, though, because and they're still able to cover all their shifts, cover all their calls, get to court. But if you look at a smaller one, they can't do it. And so oftentimes that's why they'll call out the state police, or they'll call in the detective's office for assistance. At
the Beaver Falls last council meeting, 3 police officers resigned since this case began.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what Curtis reported. He was at the meeting.
When was the meeting?
Last Tuesday, I believe it was.
Really?
Yeah. So that was interesting too. That since this thing happened, 3 police officers resigned. I know what it's. I don't know what it's like to be a police officer, but I know they're very low paid and they can move on to other positions too.
It's a very, very tough job. It's become. When I was younger, that was, you respected and trusted your parents and the police. And it's just, 30 years later, we've gotten so far away from that it's a very tough time to be a police officer. Sure. And especially like a new one just coming up, because you're right, you're very underpaid, you're risking your life, you have a very big responsibility. And sometimes, unless you really have the passion for it, it's a tough ask for people. Now, I was in training all last week at the Pennsylvania DA midwinter meeting. I was gone from Monday until Thursday. I got back Friday, and I got back late in the day, and most people were gone. So I didn't hear about that, the Beaver Falls police resigning. So I'd be interested to know kind of what happened with that. But
very good. District Attorney of Beaver County, Nate Bible. Nate, thank you for stopping in with us this morning.
Sure,
I really
my pleasure.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Hope
my
you'll come
pleasure.
back and maybe when some of these cases are solved, you can talk more about it and where the leads came from and all this stuff. Because I know as the public, they love CSI and Cold Case and all those television shows.
Absolutely.
Want it finished and to have a determination by the end of the hour, but it doesn't always happen that way.
That's right. Yeah, and we need the public's help on a lot of these cases. And I know, as I mentioned before, there are plenty of times where people see things and they just don't want to talk, and whether they're afraid or they don't trust the police or whatever it is. But I want anyone listening to know you can always come directly to me with this information, and I will make sure that it gets used properly.
Call the DA's office in.
Absolutely.
Nate,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
being
so
with
much
us.
for having me.
Appreciate it. Look forward to our talks again.
Me too. Thank you.
You're listening to Beaver County Radio, coming to